we talk about different pencil names and numbers and what do they actually mean, and we'll be going over that as we go through this book. But just remember that if it has an H, it's a harder lead than if it has a B. If it has a B, then it is a much softer lead. An HB is typically, a number 2 pencil is an HB, or an HB is equivalent to a number 2 pencil. So for this one, we just basically want to draw this reference photo with graphite. Now, I've got my center, which is kind of an oval. So I'm just going to kind of do a little bit of a sketch here. And now we have our petals. Now the petals are coming out from the center of the flower. We did a similar drawing to this in one of the previous volumes for the draw alongs, and we had drawn a sunflower with graphite. And I just want to kind of keep track of what I'm drawing here. Remember, there's a lot of lines in this, a lot of lines in these petals. Not all the petals kind of look like they're perfect. There's a lot of petals that are behind one another. For example, here's another one that's kind of coming out. But look at the lines that are created. And we want to go back in after I kind of sketch this out to just kind of say, okay, well, where are those lines? And some of the petals have a point to them. Some of them do not. Some of them have kind of a, it looks like it's kind of bending over. I'm going to erase that one. I don't know what happened right there. Some of them are wider than others, like this one right here. It may be overlapping. So this one's kind of coming down, and then this one is kind of overlapping. Maybe also not necessarily the shape of what you may or may not think is a petal. The other thing you want to note too is that I don't draw in the realism style. So what I'm doing here with this graphite, and amongst all the other draw alongs too, is that we want to be able to draw what we see, not what is seen. And I say that a lot, but I really think that it's important to draw what you see, and what I see, what you see is going to be totally different. What someone else that's in the draw along, that's watching these videos and participating in this class sees maybe something else. I want to draw my interpretation of this flower. And that's how you should be looking at it also, is what is your interpretation of this particular flower. So now if we take a look at, I've got this all sketched out. So I'm going to take a look at where all of these lines are. Now this has a lot of lights and darks in it, a lot of shading. And that's when we're really going to kind of get involved in using a graphite pencil for shading and creating shadows. And I'm just going to give this one a sharpen here. Kind of keep a sharp point, but at the same time, you don't want it to be like completely broken. Or completely too pointy and scratchy. For example, this one here, this 9B, you can kind of tell by how this lead is right now, is that something that I've used, it's been used, and it just kind of looks like it's just got a lot of love, I guess. So we've got this center section. Now, what is happening in the center section? We've got a lot of these different squiggliness here. A lot of different lines. Look how it's like coming out from the center. Thought my lead was going to break for a minute. All these tiny little lines are coming out. And that's how I'm seeing it. My lead is going to break. Can you see? Look at that. It broke. Okay. This is real, right? We'll switch to this pencil. This is also a 3B. So there's my center. Some of them are darker than others. And then it's kind of got like another middle here. So another, like a border of it. And I'm just going to press down to get all of those darker sections. And even for this part right here, that is this middle section, we don't want to create every single one of those little lines. I mean, if you would like to, that would be great, but that's not what we're here for today. We want to really make sure that we can draw these petals with graphite. So shading, just like similar to shading with charcoal, here is kind of that line on that petal. This side of it is a little bit lighter. We're going to give it a little bit of a transition here. And then we want these middle sections to kind of overlap. Now, the other thing is that whatever is behind it is going to be a little bit darker. So we've got this darker section here, and I am going to just erase a little bit because I want a little bit of a highlight up here. An unfinished line again. The other thing is that what you're placing behind is going to be darker, but it's also going to be creating a line for the next petal. So we've got this area here. I'm going to actually kind of dab a little bit with my kneaded eraser. The kneaded eraser becomes your drawing tool also. And then I've got this petal that's coming up, and it's coming up darker from the center. But I want to kind of get that middle section. This is one petal here. Here's another one. And maybe this one's light behind it all, but it becomes darker as we get to this one. Kind of that line right there. And those darker lines just pressed down will kind of create the grooves in each of them. Now our petals are starting to turn into a different direction. We're gonna have a petal behind here, so here's my darker section here. Gonna go back in with my kneaded. We don't want to have an outline. We don't want to have an outline of this flower with this pencil. We want to just create, just like we did in the last draw along lesson with the charcoal. We want to basically be able to create that seamless transition with the graphite. And then we'll go over these because these kind of overlap, and also kind of giving it a little bit of shading in the middle, and then darker specks to represent all of those specks. And then as we get to the middle, it'll look a little different too. So I'm just going to kind of work the flower petals along with the middle. This petal kind of takes a turn of its own, but then there's kind of another line here that kind of comes up, and maybe in the middle of this, there's a little bit of shading, but how do we get that transition between the two? We don't want to see that line, so let's dab it a little bit with the kneaded eraser so we don't really see what's happening. And then here's our line, but we don't want to make it our outline. We just kind of want to make it hug the rest of the petal. I hope that, that's kind of another way of looking at it, is that there's the side of it. See how it's coming around? And we're just kind of bringing this line here. See this line that's in the middle? We're just kind of bringing that up. Now, if this is completely, we want to kind of lighten what's happening here. This is completely shaded in, but we still want to be able to get some little bit of a highlight. So let's kind of dab a little bit, because this lead is soft enough. The one I'm using is soft enough. I'm using a 3B. Usually 3B and up is pretty soft. If you really get like to 4B, 5B, well, 5, 6, 5 and 6 is really, really makes a difference. You can kind of really see it. It will get on your hands. You will be able to smudge it. Some people will use a piece of acetate. There's also a product that you can purchase that kind of sits over it kind of raises it up. It's a piece of lucite, raises it up over your painting or your drawing so that you rest your hand, kind of like a rest for it. So you're not leaning completely on your page. So I'm just basically kind of adding all of this dark area to this middle section as I'm working my way around. Now, if you see right here, there's kind of a little bit of a darker area here. And then also here. So as we're moving down, we're actually kind of seeing some areas that are much darker than others. But again, we want to have that seamless transition between the lights and the darks. And how do you create that without outlining it is where it becomes a little tricky. So you want to make sure that you're putting the darker section on the opposite side of the line of your flower, and that will prevent it from being outlined. This needs to be a little bit more. See right here, we're going to go with a lighter petal, but here again, we're kind of bringing in a little bit of a darker area. Again, going to a lighter section right underneath the other petal. And then we've got this one, which has more lines. So we kind of, this one's coming around like this, and this one's kind of hugging it. And in between there is really where it creates kind of a darker shadow and then moves up to become even lighter. Because we want our petals to just end. We don't want them to end where they have a definitive line. And here we have this one coming up. We have another line in the middle there that will kind of create that. And if you're drawing it in the shape and shading it in the shape of the actual flower or the object, doesn't necessarily, that can apply to anything that you're drawing. What is the actual shape of what you're drawing? It would be like coloring a ball in the circular fashion, in the shape of the ball. If I was to draw this in a different shape without drawing any of the petals first, then it would look a little weird. So here's our lines, and we're in between here. So I'm just going to kind of pivot this around a little bit. Okay. I just needed to kind of get within that area. Now we've got this line here. Again, kind of a flick of it. Start out light, dark from the center. Bring and flick your pencil off it. And by that, I mean you're kind of lifting from the page. We've kind of got a little bit of a line going right there. Kind of want to give it a little bit of a lightness right there, maybe right here. Again, we are filling in all of this with kind of these specks. So that's all representing all of what is here. Kind of flick around again. Scarlett just tried to lay down and she fell. I don't know why. All right, so then we're kind of coming around here. And these specks right here, continuing around. So again, kind of alternating between that light, that dark, kind of pulling away. Here's our line of the flower there, of that petal. This is a bigger petal. I'm going to get rid of this line here. Some of the other lines. I don't really want to write them. I don't want to draw a line like this because I don't want it to look like it's, it's like a hard line, hard, sharp line, contrast. I want to be able to make sure that the contrast is there while still kind of having an illusion or suggestion of what those lines are, what the veins in the petal. So if I kind of dab a little with my eraser, my kneaded eraser, then I can kind of soften what's happening here on the other side of the petal and kind of bring in all of this, this vein of this petal so it becomes more of a transition. I hope that makes sense. And here's another petal here. Again, there's that kind of darker side of it, and here's the lighter side of it. We don't want that to really kind of go over to that side though. And then we're still working on this middle. Adding all of these little like scribbly illusion of the black lines throughout all of it. And I don't want to outline this. That's the other thing, is I don't want to outline this whole scribbliness that's here. I'm calling it scribbliness, but I'm sure that's not a technical term. And now I've got this other petal here that is coming up. I'm going to flip around so that you can still see the reference photo here, but this way I don't have to rest my hand on the on what I've already drawn. Okay, so we've got this line here and a little bit of, we want to get rid of these kind of scratchlers, these scragglers, as I call them. Again, back over to our section here that's in the middle. And there's kind of a lot of space here for this one. So for this area. So I do want to kind of add a little bit of a darker area here before I come back out with this petal. And this petal right here, it starts to lighten up again as it was lightening up over towards this area. So if I kind of pull my color in from the edge, there's that little bit of a triangle happening. Again, pull my color in from the edge, lighten up a little bit with my kneaded eraser. And again, go back in with all these little, the squigglies. Scragglies, that's what I call them, scragglies. Because it's just kind of giving the illusion of what is here. You know what I mean? It's giving the impression about what is there. Moving back up to this one, flicking those lines. I want this line, I feel like that should have been a little bit lighter than that, but I want to just kind of flick back. And this one, we're kind of mimicking what is happening right here. There's that line I'm going to pull away from and then pull away from here. And much darker here. And then kind of pull away with my kneaded eraser. Then another petal here, kind of add a little bit of, and you can see kind of there's like a little bit, these are away from each other a little bit. So I'm not going to worry about those leaves. So I'm going to leave this space, I think anyway. I mean, you could change it. You're the captain of your ship on this. A little bit of a darker area here. Here in the middle. Again, light to the point where I don't want to see the line. I don't want to see the edge. I guess I will add another petal in here. It looks a little weird without it. Kind of giving it an illusion of that it's behind it. Again, lightening up. So let's see where I need to kind of like add or take away. And the best part about a kneaded eraser is it cleans itself. So you just kind of knead it into itself, and it will clean. And that's important to do to it, because if not, you will have whatever's on there go back onto your drawing. Okay, so I'm going to flip back around, and now we're back to having just the center. So let's take a look at using, I'm going to use an 8B, which is a very, very soft pencil. And I'm going to just kind of add some color here. And what I want to happen is I want the gradation of the pencil to kind of pick up the tooth of the paper. And although we're using the paper that's inside this draw along book, it does have a little bit of a tooth. So if you were to use this on a much more, a paper that had much more tooth to it, like a drawing paper, then it would definitely look much different, because it would basically pick up whatever the texture is that's behind there. Now, I am going to go back in and kind of really use my kneaded eraser kind of like as a little bit of a pinpoint type thing, and see what I can kind of create for little white sections. And now I'm going to kind of go back in and add whatever is needed for the background. Now, you could go back into the background of this whole thing, and you could still add more graphite to it, to the whole background, but we're really focusing on the actual flower today. Just kind of go back in with my 8B, just to kind of hit it, to see where maybe I need more. Go back in, see where I need less. Maybe something needs to be touched up. And you can easily use different different numbered graphite with each other. So you could use an 8B. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. And this is flower with graphite. See you with the next lesson.